At my sister's birthday party, my dad looked straight at me and said, "Your job is to fund her dreams. If you don't like it, the door is right there." I went silent for a moment, then calmly said, "Fine. I'm leaving. Good luck covering the $380,000 mortgage I've been paying." By the next morning, my phone was blowing up with 26 missed calls. The word struck me like a physical blow, a sudden, concussive force that stole the air from my lungs. You exist to pay for her dreams. Hate it? The door's right there. My father, standing in the gleaming kitchen of the house I'd helped sustain, had just reduced my entire existence to a transactional footnote in my sister's grand narrative. 28 years of simmering resentment, of feeling unseen and unheard, had finally boiled over. But instead of the volcanic rage I might have expected, a chilling, almost surgical clarity washed over me. The very foundation of my world, the unspoken contract of my family, had just been brutally laid bare. And in that precise, shattering moment, a tiny, defiant spark ignited within me. Outside the kitchen, the party roared on, a vibrant, oblivious symphony of laughter and clinking glasses. 30 candles on Belle's elaborate cake flickered, each tiny flame a testament to her radiant, emerald-clad presence. She was the undisputed star, surrounded by an adoring constellation of family and friends, all celebrating her latest triumph, a promotion she'd mentioned only days earlier. I stood near the kitchen doorway, a neatly wrapped gift clutched in my hand, a ghost at my own family's feast. The dull ache of invisibility, a chronic condition in this family narrative, had long since numbed my spirit. I was the perennial background noise, a muted chord in a symphony composed entirely for Belle. Then came the inevitable call, speech. Speech. Belle rose, wine glass held aloft, her smile dazzling, her eyes sweeping over our parents, her husband Cameron. But in that triumphant gaze, mine remained a blank space, a blind spot. The familiar sting barely registered anymore. It was just another night in the life of the forgotten daughter. The cloying sweetness of cake and celebration hung heavy in the air as I slipped into the kitchen. The marble countertops, installed by my own careful hands 2 years ago, gleamed under pendant lights I'd also chosen and paid for. Most people didn't know those details. They didn't know about the appliances humming quietly, or the countless other invisible threads of financial support I'd woven into this house, into their lives. I just wanted a moment's reprieve, a glass of water to quench the sudden dryness in my throat. Still here. My father's voice, a low rumble of disappointment, cut through the kitchen's quiet hum. That tone, I'd heard it my entire life, a constant undercurrent of critique. "Thought you'd have left by now. You usually disappear early from these things." I turned, slowly, deliberately, meeting his gaze. My hand, for some reason, trembled slightly as I held the water glass. "Just getting some water." I brought Belle's gift. He glanced at the small box I'd placed on the side table. "How generous of you." The sarcasm, heavy and cutting, sliced through the air between us. "Though I'm sure it doesn't compare to what Cameron got her. That tennis bracelet must have cost him a fortune." "I'm happy for her," I said quietly, meaning it. Belle's happiness was never the problem. The problem was the intricate, unspoken system of worth our parents had constructed. A gilded hierarchy where she resided in the penthouse suite, and I, Jade, was perpetually relegated to the basement, perpetually on call. My father moved closer, his voice dropping, conspiratorial. "You know what your role is in this family, Jade. Always have been. You exist to support Belle's dreams, to make sure she is everything she needs to succeed. That's your purpose." The water glass in my hand, once a small comfort, now felt impossibly heavy. 28 years of this insidious narrative, and yet, hearing it articulated with such blunt force, such casual cruelty, still had the power to twist a knot in my stomach. My purpose? Exactly. He crossed his arms, his expression a strange mixture of pity and irritation. "Your sister has potential. Real potential. She's going places. Always has been destined for greatness. Ever since she was little, you've always been more ordinary, practical. There's no shame in that. But someone has to be realistic about these things." I set the glass down, carefully, deliberately, afraid it might shatter. "I graduated summa cum laude. I'm a senior financial analyst at..." He waved his hand dismissively, cutting me off. Yes. You have a nice little job. But Belle is extraordinary. She needs support, resources, opportunity. We've always known she was special. You've always known it, too, whether you want to admit it or not. This dynamic, where one child is elevated to golden child status and another relegated to family scapegoat, is a classic pattern in dysfunctional family systems. It subtly, yet powerfully, distorts the self-worth of both siblings, fostering competition and resentment while masking deeper parental insecurities and unresolved needs. The golden child often carries the impossible burden of perfection, while the scapegoat internalizes the blame for family issues, leading to a profound sense of unworthiness. The distant sounds of the party, the joyous soundtrack to this moment, felt surreal, almost alien. I've supported her plenty, I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. I've helped with. He cut me off again, his patience clearly wearing thin. You've done what was expected. What any decent sister would do, but lately, your mother, and I have noticed some resistance. Some reluctance. That attitude you've been carrying around like you're doing us all some great favor. He stepped closer, his expression hardening, his eyes like flint. Let me make something crystal clear. Your job is to facilitate Belle's success. That's your contribution to this family. If you hate it, the door's right there. Nobody's forcing you to stay. The words hung in the air, sharp and final, each syllable a shard of ice. 28 years of feeling secondary, of being told I mattered less, of watching resources flow ceaselessly toward my sister, while I scrambled for scraps. All of it crystallized in this single, brutal moment. My father stood there, a challenge in his eyes, waiting for me to back down, to apologize, to resume my designated position within the family's rigid architecture. But something had fundamentally shifted. That stretched wire finally snapped. You're right, I said, my voice quiet, almost eerily calm. Nobody's forcing me to stay. His eyebrows, thin and skeptical, rose fractionally. Excuse me. A fierce, exhilarating tremor ran through me. I'm gladly leaving. Beneath my ribs, my heart hammered out a furious, defiant drumbeat, a rhythm of liberation I hadn't known I craved. Good luck paying the $380,000 mortgage I've been covering for the past 4 years. The color drained from his face, leaving it ashen. His jaw went slack. What are you talking about? The mortgage on this house. I gestured around us, my hand sweeping across the kitchen, encompassing the house, their life, built on my silent sacrifice. The one you and Mom took out to pay for Belle's wedding, then extended to cover Cameron's business startup costs, then refinanced to fund their down payment on the condo. The monthly payments you told Belle you were handling yourselves? I've been wiring $3,200 every month directly to the bank. You've been depositing my checks and using them for the mortgage while telling Belle you two paid for everything. His mouth opened, then closed, a goldfish gasping for air. That's not. You can't just. A foreign, intoxicating feeling bloomed in my chest, light and expansive, like freedom taking its first breath. I absolutely can. And I'm done with all of it. The mortgage payments stop immediately. The loans that were never supposed to be loans? Consider them gifts. I won't ask for a penny back, but I won't send another dollar forward either. You ungrateful, he began, but I held up a hand, silencing him. I'm going to go say goodbye to Belle. Wish her a happy birthday and leave. You have until tomorrow to figure out your finances. I'd recommend calling the bank first thing Monday morning. I picked up my purse from the counter, the weight of it a sudden comfort. Oh, and Dad. His eyes, now tinged with panic, met mine. I'm ordinary and practical, remember? Which means I have 4 years of bank transfer receipts, text messages about the mortgage, and emails discussing the refinancing. All documented, all dated. Just in case you try to claim I'm lying about any of this. His face, which had been pale, now flushed a mottled, angry red. Your mother can call me herself if she wants to talk, but I'm done being the family ATM, while being treated like the family disappointment. I moved past him, my legs, surprisingly, still working, though they felt like jelly. In the living room, Belle stood near the fireplace, laughing at something Cameron had said. She looked so happy, so blissfully unaware of the financial house of cards our parents had built around her life. A part of me wondered if she truly knew, or if she genuinely believed Mom and Dad had funded everything from their own pockets. "Hey," I said, approaching her with what I hoped looked like a natural smile. "I need to head out, but I wanted to say happy birthday. Really happy for you on the promotion." She hugged me briefly, already distracted by another guest. "Thanks for coming. Oh, did you meet Cameron's new business partner? He's around here somewhere." "Maybe next time," I said, and slipped away before she could respond. The drive home took 20 minutes of white-knuckled terror, as I barely registered the streets I'd traveled 1,000 times. When I finally pulled into my apartment complex, I sat in the car for 10 minutes, shaking, the adrenaline slowly receding, leaving behind a hollow exhaustion. Then, with a profound sense of purpose, I pulled out my phone and did what I should have done years ago. I logged into my banking app, found the automated monthly transfer to my parents' mortgage account, and deleted it. 4 clicks. That's all it took to end 4 years of financial servitude. My phone stayed silent that night. I half expected an immediate call, a frantic barrage of messages, but none came. Perhaps my father was still processing or strategizing with Mom. Either way, I slept better than I had in months. Sunday morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through my curtains. I made coffee, settled onto my couch with a book, trying to pretend yesterday hadn't happened. The pretense lasted until 9:47 a.m., when my phone started ringing. Dad's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. And again. I silenced my phone and went back to my book, but the words blurred together meaninglessly. By noon, I had 26 missed calls. 18 from Dad, 6 from Mom, 2 from Belle. No voicemails. Just the desperate, insistent ringing of people who'd suddenly realized their carefully constructed financial reality had crumbled. The text started around 1 p.m. "Dad, we need to talk about this situation immediately." "Mom, how could you do this to your sister on her birthday?" "Belle, Dad says you're refusing to help with something. Call me." I responded to none of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything I could remember about the past 4 years. Dates, amounts, conversations. The time Mom had called, crying about potentially losing the house, and I'd offered to help temporarily. How temporarily had stretched into months, then years. The way Dad had explained the refinancing as a way to consolidate some family expenses. The casual mentions of helping Belle that had somehow morphed into me funding her entire lifestyle, while she remained completely oblivious. The subtle erosion of financial independence, often cloaked in the guise of helping family, or investing in the future, is a powerful form of emotional and financial abuse. It traps individuals in cycles of dependency, making escape seem impossible and reinforcing the manipulative control of others. This tactic often leverages guilt, love, and obligation, blurring the lines of responsibility until the victim feels deeply indebted and unable to break free. Monday brought a new wave of contact attempts. Dad called from different numbers: his cell, the house phone, even Mom's phone. I blocked them systematically. Work provided a welcome distraction. I buried myself in quarterly reports and budget projections, grateful for the familiar comfort of numbers that, unlike my family, actually made sense. My colleague Jennifer stopped by my desk around 3 p.m. "You okay? You seem distracted today." "Family stuff," I said, a massive understatement. "Nothing I can't handle." She gave me a knowing look. "Family stuff is usually the hardest to handle. Let me know if you need anything." The irony wasn't lost on me. A work colleague showing more genuine concern in 30 seconds than my parents had demonstrated in 28 years. I thanked her and returned to my spreadsheet, finding solace in columns and formulas that followed logical, predictable rules. Tuesday afternoon, Belle showed up at my office. She looked upset, her carefully applied makeup slightly smudged, as if she'd been crying. My stomach dropped. Whatever Dad had told her, it clearly wasn't the truth. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly, hovering near my cubicle. "Maybe grab coffee?" I saved my work and grabbed my coat. We walked to the coffee shop across the street in silence, ordered our drinks, and found a table in the back corner. Belle clutched her latte like a lifeline. "Dad says you're backing out of some family arrangement," she started, her voice tight, brittle. "He says you promised to help with the mortgage, and now you're refusing." He made it sound like you're trying to force them out of their house. I took a slow sip of my coffee, buying time to choose my words carefully. Did he explain what the arrangement actually was? She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. He said you'd agreed to contribute to family expenses, that it was supposed to be a partnership, but now you're abandoning everyone. I don't understand, Jade. Why would you do this? Especially right after my birthday. It feels so vindictive. Belle. I set my cup down gently. What do you know about Mom and Dad's mortgage situation? She blinked, confused. What? I don't know. They own their house. They've owned it for years. They took out a mortgage 4 years ago. Do you know why? Her forehead creased in confusion. No. I didn't even know they had a mortgage. I thought the house was paid off decades ago. It was. I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. They took out a $380,000 mortgage. Want to guess what it was for? Belle shook her head slowly, looking genuinely lost. Your wedding, I said quietly, the words a raw whisper. The initial loan was for your wedding. Then they extended it to help Cameron start his business. Then they refinanced to help with your condo down payment. The blood drained from her face, leaving her pale, almost ghostly. No. They told me they had savings, that they'd been planning for years to help us get started. They lied. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I was tired of sugarcoating reality. They mortgaged their house to fund your life. And for the past 4 years, I've been paying that mortgage, $3,200 a month, every month, directly to the bank. She stared at me like I'd started speaking another language. That's impossible. Why would you? Why wouldn't they tell me? Because it's easier to let me be the family ATM while you stay the golden child who deserves everything. Bitterness, sharp and undeniable, crept into my voice despite my best efforts. You want to know what Dad said to me at your birthday party? He told me my purpose in this family is to support your dreams. That I exist to make sure you have everything you need. That I'm ordinary and practical, but you're extraordinary and special. Belle's hand started shaking around her coffee cup, rattling the ceramic. He wouldn't say that. He absolutely would. He absolutely did. I showed her my phone, the long list of monthly transfers. See these? For years' worth? That's $153,600 I paid toward Mom and Dad's mortgage. The mortgage they took out to fund your wedding, your husband's business, your condo. Did you ever wonder how they could afford all that while Dad's been semi-retired and Mom only works part-time? She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know any of this. I believe you, I said, and meant it. Belle had always been sheltered, protected, kept carefully unaware of the scaffolding holding up her perfect life. But that doesn't change what's happened. I told Dad I'm done. No more mortgage payments. No more funding the fantasy they've created where everything magically works out for you while I empty my bank account in the shadows. Jade, please. She reached across the table, grabbing my hand, her grip desperate. I'll talk to them. We'll figure something out. Cameron and I can help with the mortgage. We can. Can you? I asked gently, my voice tinged with a weariness that felt bone deep. Can you really? Or will that cut into the lifestyle you've built, the one funded by their debt and my money? She pulled her hand back, staring at me like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Belle. That's exactly my point. I finished my coffee, suddenly exhausted. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to stop hurting myself. For 28 years, I've been told I matter less, that my job is to facilitate your success. I'm done accepting that role. So, what happens now? Her voice came out small, frightened. Do Mom and Dad lose the house? They have options. They can sell and downsize. They can ask you and Cameron to actually contribute. Dad can go back to work full-time instead of playing golf 3 days a week. I stood, gathering my things. What they can't do anymore is rely on me to silently fund everything while treating me like an obligation they're stuck with. Belle remained seated, crying quietly into her hands. A pang of guilt, familiar and unwelcome, pierced me. She genuinely hadn't known. She'd been as much a pawn in our parents' game as I had. But I couldn't save her from this reality. She needed to understand the true cost of the life she'd been living. I love you, I said softly. I really do. But I can't set myself on fire to keep you warm anymore. I left her there and went back to work, forcing myself to focus on the projects demanding my attention. My phone buzzed constantly, texts from Mom, calls from Dad, messages from Belle. I ignored them all. Wednesday brought a new development. An email from Dad arrived in my personal inbox around 10 a.m. I almost deleted it unread, but a morbid curiosity went out. Jade, your mother and I have discussed this situation extensively. We understand you're upset, but you need to understand the broader picture. When you agreed to help with the mortgage, it was with the understanding that this was a family investment. Belle's success benefits everyone. Her connections, her social standing, her future. These things have value that extends beyond simple dollars and cents. We never meant to make you feel less important. Both our daughters matter to us equally. However, Belle has always needed more support, more guidance. That's not favoritism. It's recognition of individual needs. You've always been more independent, more capable of handling things on your own. The mortgage situation is complex. Yes, we used the funds to help Belle and Cameron, but we did so believing you understood and supported this investment in your sister's future. Breaking your commitment now puts us in an impossible position. We're asking you to reconsider. If money is the issue, we can discuss adjusting the amount you contribute. But abandoning us entirely is not the solution. Dad. I read it 3 times, feeling my anger build with each pass. The sheer audacity of framing my financial exploitation as a family investment. The insidious gaslighting about my commitment to something I'd been guilt and manipulated into. The suggestion that I was the problem for finally setting boundaries. Gaslighting, an insidious form of psychological manipulation, works by sowing seeds of doubt in a person's reality, making them question their own memory, perception, and sanity. It creates a fog of confusion, making it incredibly difficult to identify and challenge abusive patterns, often by twisting facts, denying past events, or invalidating emotions. I drafted 7 different responses before settling on the simplest one. Dad, I did not agree to a family investment. I agreed to help temporarily with what you described as a short-term financial difficulty. That was 4 years ago. You've had 4 years to adjust your budget, find alternative solutions, or be honest with Belle about the situation. Instead, you chose to rely on my silence and my money while consistently devaluing my worth as a family member. I'm not reconsidering. This decision is final. Jade. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then blocked his email address, too. Thursday morning, my Aunt Patricia called. Mom's older sister, someone I'd always liked, but rarely saw since she lived 3 states away. Jade, honey, she started, her warm voice immediately making my throat tight. Your mom called me. She's very upset. I wanted to hear your side of things before I said anything to her. I gave her the abbreviated version. The mortgage, the payments, Dad's birthday party comments, my decision to stop. She listened without interrupting, occasionally making small sounds of surprise or dismay. When I finished, she sighed heavily. Oh, sweetheart, I wish I could say I'm shocked, but I'm not. A knot of something I couldn't quite name sadness? Validation. Tightened in my chest. Your mother has always had a blind spot when it comes to Belle. They both have. You knew. I asked. My voice barely a whisper. Not the specifics, but I've watched them treat you girls differently your whole lives. I've said something a few times over the years, but they always had excuses. Belle needed more attention because she was sensitive. Belle needed more resources because she had bigger dreams. You were fine on your own. You didn't need as much. Patricia's voice hardened. It's garbage. For the record, complete garbage. Hearing anyone, validate my experience after 28 years of gaslighting nearly broke me. I don't know what to do now, I admitted, a confession that felt incredibly vulnerable. You stand firm, she said immediately, her voice unwavering. What you're doing is healthy and necessary. Your parents created this mess. Let them figure out how to fix it. And Jade, I'm proud of you. It takes real strength to set boundaries with family, especially when they've trained you your whole life to accept less. We talked for another hour. She shared stories I'd never heard, times she'd argued with my parents about their treatment of me, holidays where she'd noticed the disparity in gifts or attention. Apparently, I'd had one person in my corner all along. I just hadn't known it. Breaking free from deeply ingrained family enmeshment, where boundaries are blurred and individual identities sacrificed for the perceived good of the unit, requires immense courage and emotional fortitude. It's often a painful, disorienting process, akin to untangling a complex knot, but it's an essential step towards self-actualization and establishing a healthy, independent sense of self. Friday afternoon, Cameron called. I almost didn't answer, but something, a flicker of hope, made me pick up. Hello, Jade. He sounded tired. Can we talk? Just us. No parents involved. I'm listening. Belle told me everything. About the mortgage, the money, all of it. He paused, a deep sigh audible. I had no idea about any of it. Your parents told us they'd saved for years to help us get started. I would never have accepted their help if I'd known they were going into debt. They refinanced their paid-off house, Cameron. They went into debt by choice. I know, and I feel sick about it, he sighed. Look, I'm not calling to convince you to start paying again. That's not your responsibility, and it never should have been. I'm calling to tell you that Belle and I are going to take over the mortgage payments. We've been going through our finances, and we can swing it if we make some adjustments. I sat down slowly, not quite believing what I was hearing. You're serious? Completely. We're selling the condo. It's too much house anyway, and the market's good right now. We'll move somewhere smaller, more affordable, use the equity to pay down the mortgage balance, then handle the monthly payments ourselves. He laughed, a short, bitter sound. Your dad is furious, by the way. Apparently, we're both ungrateful children now. Welcome to the club, I said, surprised to find myself smiling faintly. Belle wants to talk to you. She's been a mess since Tuesday. She genuinely had no idea how you'd been treated, how much you'd been carrying. He hesitated. I know things are complicated with your family, but she's trying to understand. She's horrified by what your dad said to you. I'll think about it, I said carefully. I need some space right now from all of it. I get it. Just know that when you're ready, she'll be here. We both will. He paused again. And Jade, thank you for everything you did, even though you shouldn't have had to do any of it. You're a better person than any of us deserved. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment, processing this new development. Cameron and Belle taking over the mortgage changed things, removed the immediate crisis my parents had been using to justify their panic. But it didn't change the fundamental problem. The way I'd been treated, the role I'd been assigned, the decades of being told I mattered less. That night, Mom showed up at my apartment. I saw her through the peephole, standing in the hallway, looking smaller and older than I remembered. For a moment, I considered not answering, but curiosity, or maybe something like a fragile hope, made me open the door. Can I come in? She asked quietly. I stepped aside, letting her enter. She looked around my apartment like she'd never seen it before, though she'd been here plenty of times. Maybe she was seeing it differently now, noticing the nice furniture I bought myself, the art on the walls, the life I'd built without any help from them. Your father doesn't know I'm here, she started, perching on the edge of my couch, her hands twisting in her lap. He'd be angry if he knew. Okay, I said neutrally, remaining standing. I wanted to apologize, she continued, her voice barely a whisper. For how we've treated you, for taking advantage of your generosity, for letting your father say those horrible things without defending you. You were there, my voice came out sharper than intended. At the birthday party, when he told me my purpose was to support Belle. She flinched. I was in the other room. I heard raised voices, but I didn't hear the specific words. Your father told me later what he'd said. He thought it was justified, that you needed to be reminded of your priorities. My priorities? I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. Being the family cash machine. We never saw it that way, she started, but I held up my hand. Stop. Please just stop with the excuses and the justifications. I moved to the window, staring out at the parking lot below. You want to know what breaks my heart? Not the money. I can make more money. It's that you genuinely believe Belle deserves more than me, that she's worth more, that her dreams matter more. You've believed it for so long that you can't even see how messed up it is. That's not true, Mom protested weakly. We love you both, differently. I turned to face her. You love us differently. Belle gets unconditional love, support, resources, pride. I get conditional love, based on how useful I am, how little I complain, how well I fulfill my assigned role as her supporting character. Mom's eyes filled with tears, spilling over. You're our daughter. Of course, we love you. Then why does it feel like I have to earn it every single day while Belle just has to exist? The question, a raw, burning ember I'd carried for 28 years, finally found its voice. Why was I never enough just as myself? Why did I have to be useful, helpful, practical, convenient? Why couldn't I just be loved? She cried then, proper sobbing that shook her shoulders. Part of me, the old, accommodating Jade, wanted to comfort her, to fall back into my old role of making everything easier for everyone else. But I stayed where I was, watching her cry, letting her sit with the discomfort of what she'd helped create. I don't know how to fix this, she finally said, her voice thick with tears. You can't, I said gently. Not quickly anyway. This isn't something you can apologize away or throw money at. This is 28 years of damage. It's going to take time, therapy, real change, if it can be fixed at all. What do you want from us? She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. I want you to see me, I said simply. Really see me. Not as Belle's sister or your backup plan, or the practical one who doesn't need attention. Just as Jade, your daughter who has worth and value completely independent of how I can serve this family. She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. Your father won't change. You know that, right? He's too stubborn, too set in his ways. Then he can have the relationship with me that his stubbornness earns him, I said, which might be no relationship at all. Mom stood, moving toward the door. She paused with her hand on the handle. Cameron told us they're selling the condo to take over the mortgage. Your father is livid. He thinks you poisoned them against us. I told them the truth, I stated, crossing my arms. If that poisoned anything, the poison was already there waiting. They're adults making their own decisions, just like I am. He wants me to convince you to keep paying. Says it's your responsibility since you committed to it. She looked at me with something resembling desperation. I'm not asking you to. I just want you to know what he's thinking. His thoughts on my responsibilities aren't my problem anymore. She left quietly, and I locked the door behind her, feeling drained but oddly relieved. One conversation down. Hundreds more to go. Probably. But maybe, just maybe, something had shifted. The weekend passed quietly. I caught up on chores, met Jennifer for brunch, took a long walk through the park. My phone stayed mostly silent. Dad had apparently gotten the message that I wasn't responding, and everyone else seemed to be processing the new normal. Monday morning, I arrived at work to find an email from Belle waiting in my personal inbox. Jade, I don't expect you to forgive me or Mom and Dad anytime soon. Maybe never. I'm still trying to process everything myself. Cameron and I met with a realtor this weekend. We're listing the condo next week. It feels strange to let it go, but also right. We never should have had it in the first place. Not like this. I've been thinking about all the times over the years when I just assumed Mom and Dad were covering things. Your birthday gifts were always smaller than mine, I noticed. But I told myself you preferred practical things. You never came on family vacations. They said you were too busy with work. And I believed them. You drove the same car for 10 years while I got a new one every few years. I thought you were just more frugal. I see it now. How they trained me not to question things. How they made my needs the center of everything while yours barely registered. How they used your money to fund my life while keeping me deliberately ignorant. I'm angry at them. I'm angry at myself for not seeing it. And I'm heartbroken that my success came at the cost of your well-being. You don't owe me anything. Not forgiveness, not a relationship, not even a response to this email. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see what you sacrificed. I see how they treated you. And I'm sorry. So incredibly sorry. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. If you never want to speak to me again, I understand that, too. Your sister, Belle. I read it twice, feeling emotions I couldn't quite name. Anger, grief, relief, hope. All tangled together in a knot I didn't have the energy to untangle. I saved the email but didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. Work became my sanctuary during those weeks. Numbers made sense in ways family dynamics never had. Jennifer noticed the change in me, the lighter energy despite the family chaos swirling in the background. "You seem different lately," she said one afternoon, dropping by my desk with coffee. "More settled, maybe. Is that the right word?" I considered the question carefully. Maybe liberated is more accurate. I finally stopped doing something that was destroying me. She nodded knowingly. Family expectations can be brutal. My mom wanted me to be a doctor like my brother. Took me years to accept that disappointing her was better than hating my life. We talked for nearly an hour about family pressure, about the guilt that comes with choosing yourself, about the surprising relief that follows. Having someone understand without needing the full story felt validating in ways I hadn't anticipated. That evening, I did something I'd been avoiding for years. I opened a savings account specifically for myself. Not for emergencies, not for family obligations, just for dreams I hadn't let myself have. Within the first month, I'd saved more than I had in the previous 2 years combined. The money that used to disappear into my parents' mortgage now accumulated with startling speed. I started researching graduate programs in financial planning, something I'd wanted to pursue, but had always pushed aside, telling myself the tuition money needed to go elsewhere. Looking at program descriptions, admission requirements, potential career trajectories, it felt like opening a door I'd kept locked for far too long. My apartment became a different space, too. I replaced the hand-me-down furniture from my college days with pieces I actually chose. A reading chair by the window, bookshelves that didn't sag in the middle, kitchen equipment that worked properly instead of barely functioning cast-offs from my parents' house. Each purchase felt like a small rebellion, a declaration that my comfort mattered. The guilt tried to creep in sometimes, late at night when I couldn't sleep. Whispers that I was selfish, that family meant sacrifice, that walking away made me the bad daughter Dad had always implied I was. But then I'd remember his words at the birthday party. The casual cruelty of reducing my entire existence to financing Belle's dreams, and the guilt would fade back into righteous anger. 3 weeks later, Aunt Patricia called again. "Your parents' house sold," she announced without preamble. "They closed yesterday." I nearly dropped my coffee. "They sold it?" I thought Belle and Cameron were taking over the mortgage. "They were planning to, but apparently your parents decided they didn't want to be beholden to their children for housing costs." Patricia's tone suggested she found this reasoning ironically delicious. "They sold to the first offer, took the equity, and bought a small townhouse in a retirement community. Your father is miserable, but it's probably the smartest financial decision they've made in years." Wow. I sat down slowly, trying to process this development. "Is Mom okay?" "She's adjusting. I think part of her is relieved, actually. That big house was too much for them anyway." Patricia paused. "She asked me to tell you that she started therapy. Individual sessions to work through some things. She didn't want to tell you directly because she thought it might feel manipulative, like she was trying to prove she's changing." Something warm bloomed in my chest. "That's good. Really good. Your father, on the other hand, is telling everyone who'll listen that his ungrateful daughters forced him out of his home." She snorted. Most people just nod politely and change the subject. We talked for a while longer, catching up on extended family news and her own life. Before hanging up, she said, "You did a brave thing, honey. Standing up for yourself, setting boundaries. I know it doesn't always feel good, but it was necessary. You're building a healthier life." After we hung up, I sat with those words. A healthier life. It didn't feel particularly healthy yet, more like surgery, painful and messy, but ultimately necessary. The wounds were still fresh, the healing incomplete. But I was on the right path. 2 months after Belle's birthday party, I met her for coffee again. My idea this time. Initiated through a carefully worded text. After weeks of consideration, she looked different, tired, but somehow more grounded. We made small talk for a few minutes before she said, "We moved into a rental apartment last week. 2 bedrooms, nothing fancy. It's weird, but good. Weird, like, we're starting over." "How's Cameron handling it?" "Better than expected, honestly. He admitted he'd been feeling pressured to maintain a certain lifestyle. The condo, the cars, the keeping up with everyone thing. This feels more authentic to who we actually are." She smiled slightly. We cook at home now instead of eating out 4 times a week. Revolutionary concept. I laughed despite myself. Groundbreaking. I've been seeing a therapist too, she said quietly. Working through a lot of guilt and trying to understand how I was so blind to everything. She paused. She says I was trained to be blind. That the family dynamics were deliberately structured to keep me unaware. It helps, but it doesn't erase what happened. No, I agreed. It doesn't. We talked for over an hour, carefully, navigating the minefield of our shared history. It wasn't comfortable, but it felt honest in a way our relationship never had before. She didn't make excuses or ask for premature forgiveness. I didn't pretend the hurt had magically disappeared. As we were leaving, she hugged me. A real hug, not the performative ones from before. Thank you for giving me a chance, she whispered. I know I don't deserve it yet. You're working on deserving it, I said. That's what matters. The months that followed brought gradual changes. Mom and I began having monthly phone calls, awkward at first, but slowly becoming easier. She told me about therapy, about confronting her own childhood dynamics that had shaped how she parented. She apologized repeatedly, and I gradually learned to accept those apologies while maintaining my boundaries. Dad and I didn't speak. He sent one email 6 months after the birthday party. A stiff message that technically apologized, while making it clear he still thought I'd overreacted. I responded with equal stiffness, thanking him for the apology, but making no promises about rebuilding our relationship. He didn't email again. Belle and I developed something new. Not quite the sisterhood I'd wished for as a child, but an adult relationship built on honesty rather than illusion. We met for coffee monthly, shared occasional texts, celebrated each other's wins without competition or comparison. A year after that birthday party, I got a promotion at work. Senior financial analyst to financial director, with a significant raise and my own office. I called Aunt Patricia first, then Jennifer, then Mom. All three celebrated with genuine enthusiasm. Belle sent flowers to my office with a card. Congratulations on the success you earned all by yourself. So proud of you. Your sister, Belle. I cried reading that card, but they were good tears. Healing tears. My apartment gradually transformed into a real home. I bought the couch I'd always wanted, invested in art that spoke to me, created a space that reflected who I was rather than who I thought I should be. The money I'd been sending to my parents' mortgage now funded my own dreams, my own future. I won't pretend everything became perfect. The hurt didn't disappear overnight. I still had moments of anger, of grief for the childhood I deserved, but never received. The family gatherings I attended remained complicated, navigating the careful distance I maintained with Dad while trying to build something healthier with Mom. But I also had something I'd never experienced before. Freedom. The freedom to define my own worth. The freedom to invest in myself without guilt. The freedom to walk away from relationships that demanded I shrink to fit someone else's vision of who I should be. Standing in my office a year later, looking out at the city skyline, I thought about Dad's words at that birthday party. You exist to pay for her dreams. Hate it? The door's right there. He'd meant it as a threat, a reminder of my place in the family hierarchy. Instead, he'd accidentally given me permission to leave. And I'd taken it. This story forces us to confront a difficult question. When does familial obligation cross the line into exploitation? And at what point does self-preservation become a justifiable act of liberation? Is blood truly thicker than water, or can it sometimes become a suffocating current?